When Elvis Presley's limousine broke down on a forgotten street in Memphis, he heard something that made him freeze. A 10-year-old boy sat on a broken porch, playing one of Elvis's songs on a guitar held together with duct tape. The guitar only had 4 strings. The boy's fingers were wrapped in bloody bandages. But none of that mattered, because as the boy played Love Me Tender, tears streamed down his face. Elvis walked closer. He had to know why this child was crying while playing his music. "I'm playing for my sister," the boy whispered. "Her name was Lucy." Was. Past tense. Elvis's heart broke right there on that porch. This boy was playing for someone who was gone, someone he'd lost, someone he loved so much that he kept playing even though it hurt. But Elvis didn't know the whole truth yet. Nobody did. Because what Elvis discovered about this boy and his sister would change everything. It would lead to secrets, lies, impossible choices, and a miracle that broke everyone who witnessed it. The boy's name was Theo Martinez. His sister Lucy had loved Elvis's music more than anything in the world. She had a dream, just one dream before she died. She wanted to hear Elvis Presley sing in person, just once, but she never got that chance. Or did she? 3 months before Elvis found Theo on that porch, something happened. Something the whole neighborhood thought they understood. Something that seemed final and heartbreaking and true. Except it wasn't true. Not completely. And the real story, the story of what actually happened to Lucy, why Theo was really playing that guitar, and what Elvis did when he learned the truth, that story is so powerful, so unexpected, so absolutely incredible that when it was finally revealed, an entire crowd of people broke down crying. This is the true story of a promise kept, a life saved, and a miracle that proved love is stronger than anything, even death itself. But to understand how impossible this miracle was, we need to go back to the beginning. Back to when Lucy was still alive. Back to the promise that started everything. Stay with us, because what happens next will break your heart and then put it back together in a way you never expected. The black Cadillac limousine coughed once, twice, then died right there on Maple Street in Memphis, Tennessee. It was August 1973, and the summer heat pressed down on everything like a heavy blanket nobody wanted. "Not again, Charlie," Elvis Presley said from the back seat. He wiped sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. "This is the 3rd time this month." Charlie, his driver, turned around with an apologetic smile. "Sorry, boss. I think it's the engine. Give me 10 minutes, and I'll have us moving again." Elvis nodded and watched Charlie pop the hood. Steam hissed out like an angry snake. Through the tinted window, Elvis studied the neighborhood. Small houses lined both sides of the street, their paint peeling in the heat. Laundry hung on clotheslines in tiny yards. Children's toys lay scattered in the brown grass. This part of Memphis felt a million miles away from Graceland, his mansion on the hill. Yet this was still his hometown. These were still his people. Elvis was about to close his eyes and rest when he heard it. Music. Someone was playing guitar. Not just any guitar. Someone was playing one of his songs. Elvis rolled down his window. The music drifted through the hot air, soft and gentle. It was Love Me Tender, but something about it sounded different. Raw. Real, like whoever was playing it truly meant every single note. He stepped out of the car. "Mr. Presley, where are you going?" Charlie called out, his head buried under the hood. "I'll be right back," Elvis said. "I just need to find something." He followed the music down the cracked sidewalk. His sunglasses hid his famous blue eyes, and he'd dressed simply today, just black pants and a white shirt. Most people wouldn't recognize him unless they looked closely. The music grew louder. Elvis turned the corner and stopped. On the front porch of a faded yellow house sat a boy. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old. His black hair hung in his eyes and his clothes looked 2 sizes too big, like hand-me-downs from someone older. His shoes had holes in them, and his bare toes peeked through. But none of that mattered because in his small hands the boy held a guitar. Except the guitar was broken. It only had 4 strings instead of 6. And the wood was scratched and dented like it had been dropped 100 times. Duct tape held one corner together. The boy's eyes were closed as he played. His fingers moved across the strings with surprising skill, even though they were wrapped in dirty bandages. Each note came out perfect despite the missing strings, and he was crying. Silent tears rolled down the boy's brown cheeks as he played Elvis's song. His lips moved, forming words he didn't sing out loud. The music spoke for him, telling a story of love and loss that made Elvis's chest feel tight. Elvis had heard "Love Me Tender" performed thousands of times. He'd sung it on television, in concert halls and recording studios. Famous musicians had covered it. Fans had requested it at every show. But he had never heard it played like this. The boy finished the song and sat quietly, holding the broken guitar against his chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Then he whispered something Elvis barely caught. "That one was for you, Lucy, just like I promised." Elvis cleared his throat. "That was beautiful." The boy's eyes flew open. His mouth dropped. The guitar nearly slipped from his hands. You're... The boy stammered. He stood up so fast he almost tripped over his own feet. "You're really him?" Elvis smiled and walked closer. "I'm really me. What's your name, son?" "Theo," the boy whispered. "Theo Martinez. I can't believe... Are you actually Elvis Presley?" "Last time I checked." Elvis gestured to the porch steps. "Mind if I sit down?" Theo shook his head so hard his hair flew everywhere. He moved over quickly, making room. Elvis sat beside him, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Up close, Elvis could see how thin the boy was. His wrists looked like twigs. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, the kind that come from not sleeping well or worrying too much. Too much worry for someone so young. "Where'd you learn to play like that?" Elvis asked. Theo looked down at his bandaged fingers. "I taught myself. Well, sort of. Someone showed me some chords. The rest I figured out by listening to the radio." "Those bandages," Elvis said gently. "What happened?" "Oh," Theo flexed his fingers. "I work at Mr. Harrison's junkyard after school, sorting metal and stuff. Sometimes the edges are sharp. It's okay though, I'm careful." Elvis frowned. "You work at a junkyard? Aren't you a little young for that?" Theo shrugged. "I'm 10. That's old enough to help my mama. She works 3 jobs, so I do what I can. Mr. Harrison pays me $5 a week." $5 a week. Elvis spent more than that on a single meal. "What about that guitar?" Elvis asked, pointing to the battered instrument. "Where'd you get it?" "Found it," Theo said, his face brightening a little. "Someone threw it away in the junkyard. It was broken, but I fixed it up best I could. I know it only has 4 strings, but I make it work." "You sure do," Elvis said. "I've heard professional musicians who don't play half as good." Theo's face turned red. "Really, you mean it?" "I never say things I don't mean." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A car drove past slowly, music blaring from its radio. Elvis couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. The tears, the bandaged fingers, the way Theo played like his heart was breaking. "Can I ask you something?" Elvis said. Theo nodded eagerly. "Why were you crying while you played?" The light in Theo's eyes dimmed. He looked down at the guitar and ran his thumb over the duct-taped corner. "I was playing for my sister," he said softly. "Her name's Lucy. Well, Lucia, but everyone calls her Lucy. She loved your music more than anything in the whole world." Elvis noticed Theo said loved instead of loves. Past tense. "She sounds special," Elvis said carefully. "She was the best sister anyone could ever have," Theo said. His voice cracked. "She used to sing all your songs. Even when things were hard, she never stopped singing." Before Elvis could ask more, the front door burst open. A woman rushed out, wiping her hands on an apron. She had the same dark hair as Theo, in worry lines etched deep around her eyes. "Theo, what have I told you about bothering people?" She stopped dead when she saw Elvis. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, my Lord, oh my! I'm so sorry, Mr. Presley. My son, he doesn't mean any harm. Please forgive us for..." "Ma'am," Elvis stood up and held out his hand. "Your son wasn't bothering anyone. He was sharing a gift. You should be very proud of him." The woman, Rosa, Elvis would later learn, looked like she might faint. She shook his hand weakly. "Come inside, Theo," she said, pulling her son toward the door. "Now, Mr. Presley has important places to be." "But Mama, now, mijo." Theo grabbed his guitar and let himself be pulled inside. But before the door closed, he turned back and looked at Elvis with those sad old eyes. "Thank you," Theo mouthed. Then he was gone. Elvis stood on the porch for a long moment, staring at the closed door. Something about this felt wrong. That boy was carrying pain no child should carry, and his mother looked terrified. But not of Elvis, of something else entirely. Charlie was waving from down the street, signaling the car was fixed. Elvis walked back slowly, his mind racing. He climbed into the Cadillac and sat in silence as Charlie started the engine. "Everything okay, boss?" Charlie asked. Elvis looked out the window at the faded yellow house growing smaller behind them. "Charlie," he said quietly, "I need you to find out everything you can about that boy and his family. The Martinez family on Maple Street." "Sure thing. What am I looking for?" Elvis thought about Theo's tears, his bandaged fingers, the broken guitar, and the way he'd said his sister was the best. "Something's not right here," Elvis whispered, "and I need to know what it is." The Cadillac turned the corner, and Maple Street disappeared from view. But Elvis Presley couldn't stop thinking about the boy with the broken guitar and the sister he played for in past tense. But Elvis Presley couldn't stop thinking about the boy with the broken guitar and the sister he played for in past tense. That night at Graceland, Elvis sat alone in his music room. Gold records lined the walls. Expensive instruments filled every corner. A grand piano gleamed under soft lights. He had everything a musician could dream of, yet all he could think about was a 10-year-old boy with a 4-string guitar held together with duct tape. Elvis picked up one of his guitars, a beautiful Gibson worth more than most people made in a year. He started playing Love Me Tender, trying to recreate what he'd heard on that porch. He couldn't do it. Theo had played with something Elvis had been missing lately. Soul. Pure, honest emotion that couldn't be faked or bought. "Why were you crying, son?" Elvis whispered to the empty room. "What happened to your sister?" 6 months earlier, February 1973, Theo Martinez sat cross-legged on the floor of the bedroom he shared with his little sister Lucia. She was 8 years old, 2 years younger than him, and she was dying. The doctors had explained it in big words Theo didn't fully understand. Something about her heart being weak, about valves that didn't work right, about how she'd been born this way. What Theo did understand was simple. Without surgery, Lucy wouldn't live to see her 9th birthday, and the surgery cost more money than their family would ever have. But you wouldn't know any of this by looking at Lucia. Right now she was dancing, or trying to. She held onto Theo's hands and moved her feet in tiny steps, breathing hard but smiling. "Come on, Theo," she said, giggling. "Dance with me." "Lucy, you're supposed to be resting," Theo said, even as he moved with her. "I'm tired of resting. I want to dance." From the kitchen they could hear their mother crying. She thought they couldn't hear, but the walls in their small house were thin. She was on the phone with someone from the hospital, talking about bills and payment plans and extensions. Lucia's smile faded. She stopped dancing and looked at Theo with eyes too wise for an 8-year-old. "Mama's sad again," she said. "She's just worried about grown-up stuff," Theo lied. Lucia sat on her bed, which was pushed against one wall. Theo's bed was against the other wall, so close he could reach out and touch his sister's hand in the middle of the night when she had bad dreams. "Theo," Lucia said quietly, "I know I'm sick. You're going to get better. Maybe." She pulled her favorite blanket around her shoulders, a faded blue one with clouds on it. "But if I don't, I want you to promise me something." "Don't talk like that. Promise me, Theo, please." Theo sat beside her on the bed. His throat felt tight. "Okay, what?" Lucia pointed to the small radio on their shared dresser. It was old and scratched, and the antenna was held on with tape. But it worked, and every evening they listened to music together. "Promise me you'll learn to play guitar," she said. "Promise me you'll learn all of Elvis Presley's songs." Theo blinked. "Elvis? Why Elvis?" Lucia's face lit up the way it always did when she talked about her hero. "Because his music is special. It's all about love, Theo, and love is the most powerful thing in the whole world. Stronger than sickness, stronger than sadness, stronger than anything." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a worn notebook. Inside were drawings she'd made, pictures of herself and Theo, their mother, their tiny house, and lots of hearts. She'd drawn them everywhere, in every color she could find. On one page, she'd written in her messy handwriting, "Songs I want to hear before I grow up." At the very top of the list, "Love Me Tender," sung by Elvis himself. Below that were more songs, "Can't Help Falling in Love," "Heartbreak Hotel," "Hound Dog," and others. "See," Lucia said, "these are my favorite songs. If you learn to play them, then it'll be like Elvis is here with us, and his music will make my heart stronger." Theo wanted to tell her that wasn't how medicine worked. Music couldn't fix broken hearts, not the kind inside your chest that pumped blood. But looking at his sister's hopeful face, he couldn't say it. "I don't have a guitar, Lucy." "You'll find one. You're smart, Theo. You figure everything out." She coughed then, a deep rattling sound that scared him. She pressed her hand to her chest and waited for it to pass. When she could breathe again, she grabbed Theo's hand. "Promise me," she whispered. Even if I'm not here, promise you'll still learn the songs. Promise you'll play them and think of me. Stop talking like you're going somewhere. Promise me, Theo." She'd never yelled at him before. It shocked him silent. Lucia's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared. I'm so scared. But if I know you'll keep playing music, if I know you'll remember me through the songs, then maybe I won't be so scared." Theo pulled his sister into a hug. She felt so small in his arms, so fragile, like a baby bird. "I promise," he whispered into her hair. "I promise I'll learn every single song. I'll play them all for you. Even if I'm gone," his voice broke. "Even then." Lucia pulled back and smiled through her tears. "That's good, because music makes hearts stronger, remember? Not just mine, yours too, and Mama's. Music keeps hearts alive." They sat together until their mother called them for dinner. That night, they ate beans and rice again. Money was so tight there was nothing left for extras. Rosa worked at a diner during the day, cleaned offices at night, and did laundry on weekends. But it was never enough. After dinner, Theo and Lucia lay in their beds in the dark. "Theo," Lucia whispered across the small space between them. "Yeah? Do you think Elvis Presley ever gets sad?" "I don't know. Maybe. Everyone gets sad sometimes. I bet his music makes him happy again. That's what it does for me." Theo reached his hand across the gap. Lucia grabbed it and held tight. "I'll learn those songs, Lucy. I swear I will. I know you will. You never break your promises." 3 months ago, May 1973. Theo found the guitar on a Tuesday afternoon at Mr. Harrison's junkyard. He'd been working there for 2 months, taking any job he could find to help his mother. The $5 a week wasn't much, but every penny counted now. Lucia had gotten worse. She'd stopped dancing. Some days she barely got out of bed. The doctors said they were running out of time. Theo was sorting through a pile of trash when he saw it, a guitar neck sticking out of a garbage bag. He pulled it free. The guitar was broken. It only had 4 strings, and the body had cracks running through it. Someone had given up on it completely. But to Theo, it was perfect. He spent that evening in the junkyard after his shift ended, using tools and glue to fix what he could. Mr. Harrison, a gruff old man with kind eyes, helped him. "You gonna learn to play that thing?" Mr. Harrison asked. "I promised my sister," Theo said. Mr. Harrison nodded like he understood. "Promises to sisters are important. My sister passed 20 years ago, and I still keep the promises I made her." Theo's hands froze. "Your sister? She died?" "Cancer. She was only 35. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "But keeping those promises keeps her alive in here." He tapped his chest. "Don't ever forget that, boy." That night, Theo brought the guitar home. Lucia was sleeping, her breathing shallow and raspy. He sat on his bed and tried to figure out how to play. It was harder than he'd thought. His fingers hurt. The strings cut into his skin. Nothing sounded right, but he'd made a promise. Every day after school, after work, after everything, Theo practiced. He listened to the radio and tried to copy what he heard. His fingers bled. He wrapped them in bandages and kept playing. Lucia would wake up sometimes and smile. "That's beautiful, Theo," she'd whisper, even when he was hitting wrong notes. Slowly, painfully, he started to learn. The day everything changed. Late May 1973. Theo came home from school and knew immediately something was wrong. An ambulance sat in front of their house, its lights flashing. Neighbors stood on their porches watching. Theo dropped his backpack and ran. Inside, paramedics surrounded Lucia's bed. His mother sobbed in the corner. "Mama! Mama!" Rosa grabbed him, held him tight. "She collapsed. Her heart... Oh God, Theo, her heart stopped." "No! No, no, no!" They took Lucia away on a stretcher. Her eyes were closed. An oxygen mask covered her small face. At the hospital, Theo sat in a hard plastic chair and prayed to every god he could think of. He made new promises. He'd be better. He'd work harder. He'd do anything if Lucy could just stay. A doctor came out. Theo would never forget the look on his face. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. Her heart was just too weak. She passed away at 6:47 p.m. The world stopped. Rosa's scream echoed through the hallway. Theo couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Lucy was gone. His little sister who loved Elvis, who believed in music, who made him promise to play guitar. Gone. Present day. August 1973. Theo sat in his room, looking at Lucia's empty bed. 3 months had passed, but it felt like yesterday. His mother had told him that Lucy was in heaven now, in a better place where she didn't hurt anymore. The funeral had been small. They'd buried her in her favorite dress, the yellow one with flowers. Every evening at sunset, Theo sat on the porch and played "Love Me Tender." It was the exact time Lucy used to sing along with the radio. He played all of her favorite songs one by one, working through the list she'd made. He played even though his fingers hurt. He played even though he cried. He played because he'd made a promise. "I kept my promise, Lucy," he whispered now, holding his broken guitar. "I'm learning all his songs for you, just like you asked." A photo of Lucia sat on the dresser, her last school picture. She was smiling, but you could see how sick she was, how thin, how tired. "Today I met him," Theo told the photo. "I met Elvis Presley, Lucy. He was real and kind, and he said I played beautifully. Can you believe it? The real Elvis heard me play your song?" The photo didn't answer, but Theo imagined his sister's excitement. "I wish you could have met him," Theo continued, his voice breaking. "I wish you could have heard him sing for real, not just on the radio. That was your biggest dream." He lay down on his bed, still holding the guitar. "I'm sorry I couldn't keep you here," he whispered. "I'm sorry my music wasn't strong enough to save you. But I'll keep playing, Lucy. Every day, I promise." Outside, the sun finished setting, painting the sky the same colors as that afternoon, orange and pink and gold. Somewhere across town, Elvis Presley was asking his driver to find out everything about the Martinez family. Neither of them knew yet how their lives were about to change. Neither of them knew that some promises, once made, have the power to heal more than one broken heart. Neither of them knew that some promises, once made, have the power to heal more than one broken heart. Elvis Presley couldn't sleep that night. He lay in his enormous bed at Graceland, staring at the ceiling while moonlight streamed through the curtains. The mansion was quiet except for the ticking of expensive clocks and the distant hum of the air conditioning. But inside his head, it was loud. He kept seeing Theo's face, those bandaged fingers, that broken guitar, the way the boy had cried while playing music that should have brought joy. Finally, at 3 a.m, Elvis gave up on sleep. He put on his robe and walked through the dark halls of Graceland. His footsteps echoed on the marble floors. He ended up in the music room, as he always did when his mind wouldn't rest. Marcus Webb, Elvis's bodyguard and one of his closest friends, found him there an hour later. Marcus was a big man with gentle eyes who'd been with Elvis for 5 years. He understood when Elvis needed to talk and when he needed silence. Tonight, Elvis needed to talk. "Can't sleep again?" Marcus asked, settling into a chair. "Met a kid today," Elvis said, his fingers moving absently over guitar strings. 10 years old, playing my music on a busted guitar with only 4 strings. That's nice. A fan? More than that." Elvis stopped playing and looked at his friend. Marcus, this boy was crying while he played. Real tears. And when I asked him about it, he said he was playing for his sister. Past tense. Was playing for her. Marcus leaned forward. You think something happened to her? I know something did. I could see it in his eyes. That look. I've seen it before. Where? Elvis set down the guitar. In the mirror. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus knew what Elvis meant. 3 months ago, Samuel Rivers had died. Samuel had been Elvis's mentor, the man who taught him about music and life when Elvis was just starting out. More than a mentor, he'd been like a father when Elvis's own father had been difficult and distant. Samuel had died of a heart attack at 72. Sudden, no warning. One day he was there, and the next he was gone. Elvis had performed at his funeral, singing "How Great Thou Art," with tears streaming down his face. It was the last time he'd sung with real emotion. Since then, everything felt mechanical. Empty. You're seeing yourself in this boy, Marcus said quietly. Maybe, or maybe I'm seeing what I should have been. Someone who keeps playing even when it hurts. Someone who honors the people they've lost instead of just going through the motions. Elvis stood and walked to the window. Outside, the grounds of Graceland stretched into darkness. He owned 15 acres of land, a mansion with 23 rooms, more cars than he could count. But what did any of it mean? My last 3 concerts were terrible, Marcus. You know it, I know it. The audience could feel it. I'm up there singing songs I've sung 1,000 times and I feel nothing. I'm just empty. You're grieving, Elvis. That's normal. Is it? Elvis turned to face his friend. Or am I just being selfish? Samuel would be ashamed of me right now. He always said music should come from the heart or not at all. And lately, my heart isn't in it. So what does this boy have to do with it? Elvis thought about Theo's face, the way he'd played despite the pain, despite the loss. He reminded me what music is supposed to be. Not a performance, not something you do for money or fame. It's supposed to be honest, pure. That kid was pouring his heart out through a broken guitar, and it was more real than anything I've done in months. Marcus nodded slowly. You want to help him. I need to know his story first. Can you find out about him? About his family? The mother looked scared when she saw me, and not in a starstruck way. Something's wrong there, Marcus. Something bad. I'll make some calls first thing in the morning. Thank you. Marcus stood to leave, then paused at the door. Elvis, Samuel would be proud that you're paying attention, that you're seeing this boy instead of just driving past. That's not being empty. That's still having a heart. After Marcus left, Elvis sat alone with his thoughts until sunrise painted the sky pink and gold. Later that morning, Elvis tried to distract himself with normal routines. He ate breakfast, read the newspaper, answered some fan mail, but his mind kept wandering back to Maple Street. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, called around noon. Elvis, we need to discuss the Vegas shows. They're offering double the usual rate if you'll add 3 more performances. I don't want to talk about Vegas right now. What do you want to talk about? Because you've been distracted for weeks. The band is worried. The promoters are worried. I'm worried. Elvis closed his eyes. The Colonel only cared about money and bookings. He never understood what music really meant. I met someone yesterday who reminded me why I started singing in the first place. That's nice. Now about Vegas. Goodbye, Colonel. Elvis hung up. He knew he'd hear about that later, but he didn't care. Marcus returned in the early afternoon carrying a folder. His face was serious. You found something, Elvis said. Sit down first. They went to Elvis's private study. Marcus opened the folder and pulled out papers, notes he'd written, phone numbers he'd called, information he'd gathered. The boy's name is Theo Martinez, 10 years old like you said, lives with his mother, Rosa Martinez, on Maple Street. Father left when Theo was 3. Rosa works 3 jobs, waitress at Murphy's Diner, night cleaning crew at the office buildings downtown, and weekend laundry service. 3 jobs, Elvis repeated quietly, and the boy works at Harrison's junkyard after school. $5 a week. He told me that part. What about the sister? Marcus hesitated. Her name was Lucia, 8 years old. She had a congenital heart defect. Basically, she was born with a weak heart. The family couldn't afford the surgery she needed. She died 3 months ago. The words hit Elvis like a punch to the gut. 3 months, he whispered, the same time Samuel died. I talked to the neighbors. They said Lucia was a sweet kid who loved music, especially your music, Elvis. She had a list of songs she wanted to hear, and at the top was Love Me Tender sung by you in person. That was her dream. Elvis felt his throat tighten, but she never got to hear it. No. And according to the neighbors, Theo made his sister a promise before she died. He promised he'd learn to play all your songs. Every evening at sunset, which was Lucia's favorite time, he sits on that porch and plays. He's been doing it every single day since she died. He's playing for her, Elvis said, keeping his promise. The neighbors say sometimes they hear him talking to her while he plays, like she's still there. Marcus closed the folder. The mother, Rosa, is barely holding it together. She's drowning in medical debt from Lucia's treatments. The hospital is threatening to sue, and now Mr. Harrison is planning to close his junkyard next month, which means Theo will lose his job. Elvis stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was shining. Birds were singing. Life was going on like normal. But on Maple Street, a 10-year-old boy was carrying grief no child should have to carry. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. The junkyard owner, Mr. Harrison, he told me that Theo barely talks anymore except to his guitar. The boy's grades are dropping. He's not eating much. Rosa is worried he's giving up on everything except that promise to his sister. Elvis thought about the tears on Theo's face, the way he'd played with his eyes closed, like he was trying to see something or someone who wasn't there anymore. He knew that feeling. He'd been living it for 3 months. Marcus, do you believe in signs? What kind of signs? The kind where the universe puts someone in your path for a reason? Where you break down on a random street and hear music that changes everything? Marcus smiled slightly. You think meeting Theo was a sign? I think Samuel would have wanted me to help this boy, and I think maybe helping him is how I find my way back to music. Real music, the kind that matters. What are you going to do? Elvis turned from the window, and for the first time in months, there was purpose in his eyes. I'm going to visit them tomorrow evening, but I don't want to go as Elvis Presley, the superstar. I want to go as someone who understands loss, someone who knows what it's like when the world keeps spinning, but you're standing still. And then what? I don't know yet, but that boy made a promise to his sister, and he's keeping it even though it's breaking his heart. The least I can do is show up. Actually show up, not just throw money at the problem and walk away. Marcus nodded. I'll drive you tomorrow. What time? Sunset, when he plays. That night, Elvis slept better than he had in months. He dreamed of music and broken guitars and little girls who love songs about love. When he woke the next morning, he knew what he had to do. The next evening, Elvis stood on the porch of the Martinez home, dressed in simple clothes, jeans and a plain blue shirt, no sunglasses, no disguise, just him. He carried a guitar case. Marcus waited in the car down the street, giving Elvis privacy. Elvis knocked on the door. Rosa Martinez answered, her eyes widening in shock for the second time in 2 days. Mr. Presley, we didn't expect... Is everything okay? Mrs. Martinez, Elvis said gently, I'd like to talk to you and Theo about your daughter Lucia and about music and promises and why any of it matters. Would that be okay? Rosa's hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. You know about Lucy? Yes, ma'am, and I know what Theo promised her. I'd like to help him keep that promise, if you'll let me. From inside the house, Elvis heard Theo's voice. Mama? Who's at the door? Rosa wiped her eyes and called back, Mijo, we have a visitor. Theo appeared behind his mother, holding his broken guitar. When he saw Elvis, his mouth dropped open. Mr. Elvis, you came back? Elvis smiled. I came back, and I brought you something. He held up the guitar case. This was one of my first guitars. I think it would be honored to help you keep your promise to Lucy, if you'll accept it. Theo stared at the case like it contained magic. Rosa started crying in earnest now. We can't accept this. It's too much. Mrs. Martinez, Elvis interrupted gently. 3 months ago, I lost someone very important to me. Someone who taught me that music isn't about fame or money. It's about connection. It's about keeping the people we love alive in here. He tapped his chest, just like Mr. Harrison had done with Theo. Your son reminded me of that, so please, let me do this. Not as Elvis Presley the celebrity, as someone who understands. Rosa looked at her son's hopeful face, then back at Elvis. Come in, she whispered. Please, come in. Elvis stepped into the small house, and as he did, he felt something shift inside him. Something that had been broken starting to heal. Neither he nor Theo knew it yet, but this was the beginning of something bigger than either of them could imagine. This was the beginning of promises being kept, hearts being healed, and music becoming magic again. Elvis sat at the small kitchen table in the Martinez home, feeling like he'd stepped into another world. The house was tiny. You could fit the whole thing inside Graceland's living room. The furniture was old and worn. The walls had cracks, but everything was clean and cared for, and there were touches of love everywhere. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Most were signed Lucy in crayon. Theo sat across from Elvis, staring at the guitar case like it might disappear if he blinked. Rosa bustled around, apologizing for not having anything fancy to serve. Please don't worry about that, Elvis said. I'm just grateful you're letting me visit. Rosa set down 3 glasses of water and finally sat down. Her hands shook slightly. Mr. Presley, I don't understand. Why would you come here? Why would you give Theo such an expensive gift? Elvis looked at Theo, then back at Rosa. Because yesterday your son reminded me of something I'd forgotten. He showed me that music still matters. That it's not about performing on big stages or making hit records. It's about… Elvis paused, searching for the right words. It's about keeping promises to the people we love, even when it hurts. Theo's eyes filled with tears. You know about Lucy, he whispered. Yes. I asked my friend to find out about your family. I hope that's okay. I wanted to understand. Theo talks to her, Rosa said quietly, her voice breaking. Every evening at sunset, he sits on the porch and plays for her. The neighbors must think he's crazy. I don't think he's crazy, Elvis said firmly. I think he's brave. Grief makes people do all sorts of things. Some people stop feeling altogether. But Theo keeps feeling, keeps playing, keeps remembering. That takes courage. Rosa wiped her eyes with a napkin. I worry about him. He barely eats. He doesn't play with other kids anymore. All he does is work at the junkyard and practice that guitar. Elvis turned to Theo. Is that true? Theo looked down at his bandaged fingers. I made her a promise. I know. Your friend told me about the list Lucy made, the song she wanted to hear. Theo's head shot up. You know about the list? I do, and I think it's beautiful that you're learning those songs for her. Elvis pushed the guitar case across the table. But you can't keep playing on a broken instrument with only 4 strings. It's making your fingers bleed. Lucy wouldn't want that. But I found that guitar myself. It was the first thing that was really mine. And you should keep it always, Elvis said. Keep it to remember where you started. But use this one to keep growing, to keep your promise properly. Slowly, carefully, Theo opened the case. Inside was a beautiful acoustic guitar. Gibson, perfectly maintained, with all 6 strings and a warm honey color. A small inscription on the side read, To Theo, keep the music alive, EP. Theo touched it like it was made of glass. It's beautiful, he breathed. It's yours, but only if you promise me something. Theo looked up quickly. What? Promise me you'll let me teach you how to play it properly. No more hurt fingers, no more struggling alone. If you're going to honor your sister's memory, do it right. Rosa shook her head. Mr. Presley, we can't pay you for lessons. I don't want payment. I want… Elvis paused, surprised by the emotion in his own throat. I need this. I need to remember why music matters. Your son is going to teach me that while I teach him guitar. It's a fair trade. Theo lifted the guitar from its case. It felt different from his broken one. Heavier, more solid, like it meant business. When would we start? Theo asked. How about right now? For the next 2 hours, Elvis taught Theo the basics. Proper finger placement, how to hold the guitar, how to strum without hurting himself. Rosa watched from the kitchen, tears streaming down her face as she saw her son smile for the first time in months. "You're a natural," Elvis said as Theo successfully played a simple chord progression. "With the right training, you could be really good." "Lucy used to say I'd be famous someday," Theo said. Then his face fell. "But I don't want to be famous. I just want to play for her." "That's the best reason to play music," Elvis said. "Not for fame or money, but for love." They practiced until the sun started to set, painting the small kitchen in orange and gold light. Theo stopped playing and looked at the clock. "It's time." "Time for what?" Elvis asked, though he already knew. "I always play for Lucy at sunset. It was her favorite time. She said the sky looked like it was on fire with color, and fire meant passion, and passion meant the music would reach all the way to heaven." Elvis felt his chest tighten. "She sounds like she was very wise." "She was the smartest person I ever knew," Theo said. He stood up, holding his new guitar. Would you like to come outside while I play? You don't have to stay. I just thought..." "I'd be honored," Elvis said. They sat on the porch together, Elvis, Theo, and Rosa. The neighborhood was quiet except for children playing down the street and a dog barking somewhere far away. Theo positioned the guitar on his lap and closed his eyes. For a moment, he just sat there, breathing. Then he began to play Love Me Tender. It was better than before. The new guitar made the notes ring clear and true. But more than that, Theo was playing with his whole heart. Every note carried love and loss and hope all mixed together. Elvis watched the boy's face and saw tears streaming down his cheeks. But Theo kept playing, kept pushing through the pain. When the song ended, Theo whispered, "That one was for you, Lucy. Mr. Elvis is here. He's teaching me just like you said someone would. I'm keeping my promise." Rosa covered her mouth with both hands, sobbing quietly. Elvis had performed for presidents and kings in front of crowds of thousands. But this moment, sitting on a broken porch with a grieving boy playing for his dead sister, this was the most important audience he'd ever had. "Theo," Elvis said gently, "can I ask you something?" Theo opened his eyes. "Okay. Do you really believe Lucy can hear you when you play?" Theo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I have to believe it, because if she can't hear me, then what's the point of anything?" Music was what connected us. It was how we talked about things that were too hard to say with regular words. "So yes, I believe she hears me. I have to." Elvis nodded, understanding completely. Since Samuel died, he'd been asking himself the same questions. What's the point? Does any of it matter? But watching Theo, seeing how the boy kept faith with love, even in the face of loss, Elvis realized something important. The point was the keeping going. The point was the love itself, not whether it changed anything. "I think you're right," Elvis said. "I think love is louder than death. And if Lucy loved you, and I know she did, then she hears every single note." Theo smiled through his tears. It was small and sad, but it was real. "Will you come back?" Theo asked. "Will you really teach me?" "Twice a week," Elvis said. "Every Tuesday and Thursday evening. If that works for your mother." Rosa finally found her voice. "Mr. Presley, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. Like I said, Theo's teaching me something too." What could my son possibly teach Elvis Presley? Elvis looked at Theo, at this small boy who'd suffered so much but still kept playing, still kept loving, still kept his promises. "He's teaching me that music isn't about being perfect or famous. It's about being honest. It's about showing up even when it hurts." Those are lessons I needed to remember. Elvis returned to Graceland that night feeling lighter than he had in months. Marcus met him at the door. "How did it go?" "It was exactly what I needed," Elvis said. "I'm going back Tuesday." "Your manager called 3 times. He's not happy about you canceling the meeting about Vegas." "I don't care about Vegas right now." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Who are you and what have you done with Elvis?" Elvis laughed, really laughed, for the first time since Samuel died. "I met a kid who's been working at a junkyard, playing on a broken guitar, keeping a promise to his dead sister, and he's got more integrity in his little finger than most of the people I deal with in this business. It made me realize I've been sleepwalking through my own life. So what are you going to do? I'm going to teach that boy guitar. I'm going to help him keep his promise, and maybe in the process, I'll figure out how to keep the promises I made to Samuel. To always remember why music matters, to never let it become just a job. Marcus smiled. Samuel would be proud of you. I hope so, because for the first time in 3 months, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Tuesday evening came, and Elvis returned to Maple Street. Theo was waiting on the porch, his new guitar already in his hands, his face lit up with excitement. I've been practicing, Theo said as Elvis climbed the porch steps. I learned the whole first verse of Can't Help Falling in Love. Want to hear? I'd love to. They spent 2 hours working through songs. Elvis showed Theo techniques he'd learned over decades of playing. Theo absorbed everything like a sponge, his fingers moving more confidently with each passing minute. During a break, Theo looked at Elvis seriously. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever get sad? Like really sad? Even though you're famous and rich and everyone loves you? Elvis set down his guitar. This was a real question, and it deserved a real answer. Yes, he said simply. Being famous doesn't protect you from sadness. Sometimes it makes it harder because you're supposed to smile all the time, supposed to pretend everything's perfect. What makes you sad? Elvis thought about Samuel, about the funeral, about the emptiness he'd been feeling. I lost someone important to me a few months ago, someone who taught me about music and life. And since he died, I've been going through the motions, performing, but not really feeling anything. Just doing it because it's my job. Theo nodded like he understood perfectly. That's how I felt after Lucy died, like nothing mattered anymore. But then I remembered my promise, and I realized keeping it was how I could still be connected to her. Exactly. And you playing for her yesterday, that reminded me of my own promises. I promised my friend I'd never forget why music was important, but I had forgotten until I heard you. So I helped you? More than you know. Theo smiled, the first fully happy smile Elvis had seen on his face. I'm glad, because you're helping me too. Before you came, playing hurt so much. The guitar hurt my fingers, but also, it hurt my heart because I kept thinking about how Lucy would never hear it. But now when I play, I think about how she'd be so excited that I'm learning from Elvis Presley. It makes it hurt less. Rosa came to the door. Theo, it's getting late. You have school tomorrow. 5 more minutes, Mama? She looked at Elvis, who nodded. 5 more minutes. When they were alone again, Theo said quietly, Mr. Elvis, can I show you something? Of course. Theo went inside and returned with a worn notebook, the same one his sister had kept. He opened it carefully to the page with the list. These are all the songs Lucy wanted to hear. I've learned 3 so far. Love Me Tender, Can't Help Falling in Love, and I'm working on Hound Dog because she thought it was funny. Elvis looked at the list written in a child's messy handwriting, his vision blurred with tears. At the very top, Love Me Tender, sung by Elvis himself. She never got to hear you sing, Theo said, his voice small. That was her biggest dream, and I couldn't make it happen. I tried, Mr. Elvis. I prayed and wished and hoped, but she died before I could figure out how to bring you to her. The pain in the boy's voice was unbearable. Elvis put his arm around Theo's shoulders. You didn't fail her, Theo. You were 10 years old. You couldn't have made that happen. But it was her dream. I know, and I'm so sorry she didn't get to hear it. Elvis looked at the list again, at all the songs written there. But maybe we can honor that dream in a different way. How? An idea was forming in Elvis's mind. A crazy, impossible, beautiful idea. What if we learned all these songs together? What if I taught you every single one? And then, what if we played them for the people who knew Lucy, for the neighborhood, for everyone who loved her? Theo's eyes went wide. You mean like a concert? Not a big fancy one, just a simple gathering. You and me playing the songs your sister loved, sharing her memory with the community. Would she have liked that? She would have loved it, Theo whispered. She always said music should be shared. Then that's what we'll do. We'll learn every song on this list, and we'll play them in her honor. It won't be the same as her hearing them herself, but maybe it's the next best thing. Theo threw his arms around Elvis, crying into his shoulder. "Thank you," the boy sobbed. "Thank you for helping me keep my promise." Elvis held him tight, his own tears falling. "Thank you for reminding me why promises matter in the first place." They sat together on the porch as the last light faded from the sky. Two people who'd lost someone important, finding their way back to music through shared grief and unexpected friendship. Inside the house, Rosa watched through the window, praying thanks to God for sending them this gift, this moment of grace in the middle of their darkness. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when they leave this world, maybe Lucia Martinez smiled, knowing that her brother was keeping his promise after all. Over the next 3 weeks, Elvis kept his word. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, he arrived at the Martinez home just before sunset. Sometimes Marcus drove him. Other times, Elvis drove himself in a regular car, not the limousine, because he wanted to blend in, to be just another person on Maple Street. The neighborhood quickly figured out what was happening. At first, people gathered on their porches to watch Elvis Presley walk down their street. They whispered and pointed. Some asked for autographs, but Elvis politely declined. "I'm here as a teacher, not a performer," he'd say with a kind smile. "This time is for Theo." Eventually, people understood. They still watched. How could they not? But from a respectful distance. They saw something special happening, something sacred, and they didn't want to disturb it. Theo improved rapidly. His fingers grew calluses, the good kind that came from practice instead of sorting sharp metal at the junkyard. He learned chord progressions and strumming patterns. Most importantly, he learned to play with confidence instead of fear. "You're not just hitting notes anymore," Elvis told him during their 5th lesson. "You're making music. There's a big difference." Theo beamed with pride. But Rosa worried. She watched her son grow attached to Elvis, saw how Theo's face lit up on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, how he talked about Mr. Elvis constantly at dinner. One Thursday night, after Theo had gone to bed, Rosa walked Elvis to his car. "Mr. Presley," she said quietly, "can I speak honestly with you? Please, and call me Elvis." Rosa wrapped her arms around herself even though the night was warm. "What happens when you leave? When you get bored of this project and go back to your real life?" Elvis stopped walking. "You think I'm going to abandon him? I think you're a famous man with a famous life. And we're nobody. Sooner or later, you'll remember that." The words stung, but Elvis understood where they came from. Rosa had been let down before. Life had broken promises to her over and over. "Mrs. Martinez, Rosa, I'm not going to disappear. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I give you my word." "Words are easy, Mr. Presley. You're right. So let me prove it with actions. I'm not just teaching Theo for fun. I meant what I said about the concert. I want to organize something special for this neighborhood, in Lucia's memory." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "Don't say things like that unless you mean them. Don't give us hope just to take it away." "I mean it," Elvis said firmly. "In fact, I've already started planning. That's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight." He reached into his car and pulled out a folder. Inside were pages of notes, sketches, ideas. "I've been thinking about this every day," Elvis said, showing her his plans. "A free concert right here in the neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just me, Theo, and the songs Lucia loved. We'll do it for the community, for everyone who knew her." Rosa looked at the papers, at Elvis's handwriting covering every page. He'd drawn diagrams of where a stage could go. He'd listed all the songs from Lucia's notebook. He'd even written down ideas for decorations. "You're serious," she whispered. "Completely serious. But I need your permission. I need to know you're okay with this, with sharing Lucia's memory this way." Rosa couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. Elvis pulled her into a gentle hug. "Your daughter loved music. She believed it could make hearts stronger. Let's prove she was right." The next morning, Elvis made a phone call he'd been dreading. "Colonel Parker speaking." "Colonel, it's Elvis. We need to talk." His manager's voice turned immediately suspicious. "About time. You've been avoiding my calls for 3 weeks. The Vegas people are getting impatient. I'm not doing the extra Vegas shows." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, excuse me? I said I'm not doing them. I have something more important to do. More important than a contract worth $500,000? Elvis, have you lost your mind? Elvis took a deep breath. Maybe, or maybe I'm finally finding it again. Colonel, I'm organizing a free concert in Memphis, in a neighborhood that needs it, for a little girl who died without ever getting to hear me sing. A free concert? Are you joking? We don't do free concerts, Elvis. That's not good business. I don't care about business right now. Well, you should care. I've built your career. And I'm grateful for that, Elvis interrupted. But this isn't about my career. This is about doing something that matters. Something real. The colonel's voice turned cold. Fine. Do your little charity concert. But don't come crying to me when your reputation suffers, when people think you're going soft, when... Goodbye, Colonel. Elvis hung up before his manager could say anything else. Marcus, who'd been listening nearby, gave him a slow clap. That was amazing. I've never heard you stand up to him like that. I should have done it years ago, Elvis said. Samuel tried to tell me once that the colonel didn't understand what music was really about. I didn't listen then, but I'm listening now. So what's next? Next, we make this concert happen, and we do it right. Elvis threw himself into planning with an energy he hadn't felt in years. He called in favors, contacted people, arranged logistics, but he didn't want it to be some big production with lights and cameras and corporate sponsors. He wanted it simple, real, from the heart. He met with Reverend Johnson from the local church, who immediately offered the church parking lot as a venue. That boy and his family have been through so much, Reverend Johnson said. If you're doing this to honor little Lucia, you have the full support of this community. Thank you, Reverend, but I need to be clear. This isn't about me getting publicity. I don't want news crews or reporters turning it into a circus. Understood. We'll keep it within the neighborhood. Just the people who knew the Martinez family. But word spread anyway, the way news always does in tight communities. People talked. They told friends. They called relatives. Mrs. Chen, who owned the corner store, came to Rosa's house with bags of decorations. Streamers, balloons, paper lanterns. For the concert, she said, pressing them into Rosa's hands. Lucia used to come to my store every week. She always wanted to buy candy, but you always said no because of her medicine. So she'd just look at everything and tell me stories instead. She was such a bright light. Rosa hugged Mrs. Chen, both women crying together. Mr. Harrison from the junkyard showed up next. I heard about this concert idea. I've got scrap metal and wood that could be used to build a stage. Nothing fancy, but it'd work. And I can delay shutting down the yard for another month to help with construction. Mr. Harrison, Rosa said, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Theo's a good kid. He works harder than men twice his age, and he's doing it all for his sister's memory. That deserves respect. One by one, neighbors offered help. Someone volunteered to handle chairs. Someone else offered to make food. The community was coming together in a way they hadn't in years, all because a famous man had noticed one grieving boy. Elvis visited the neighborhood on a Saturday to see the preparations. What he found took his breath away. The church parking lot had been transformed. Mr. Harrison and a crew of volunteers had built a simple wooden stage using reclaimed materials. It wasn't pretty, but it was sturdy and real, just like the music they'd play on it. Children were painting signs in memory of Lucia Martinez, and music makes hearts stronger, Lucia's favorite saying. Old Mrs. Patterson was sewing curtains for the stage backdrop. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, she told Elvis, but I can still do this. Lucy used to wave to me every morning when she waited for the school bus. Such a sweet child. Elvis walked through the preparations, feeling humbled. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about a community honoring one of their own. Theo found him standing by the stage. The boy was carrying his guitar, the one Elvis had given him, and his face was glowing with excitement. Mr. Elvis, look at what everyone's doing. It's amazing. It really is, Elvis agreed. Your sister must have been very special for people to do all this. She was. Theo's smile faded a little. I just wish she could see it. Maybe she can, Elvis said. Maybe she's watching from somewhere and smiling. Do you really believe that? Elvis thought about Samuel, about whether his mentor could see him now, see him finally doing something meaningful. I want to believe it, Elvis said honestly, and sometimes wanting to believe is enough. That evening, Elvis and Theo sat on the Martinez porch for their regular lesson. But instead of jumping right into practice, Theo was quiet, thoughtful. "What's on your mind?" Elvis asked. Theo picked at the guitar strings. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of playing in front of all those people. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough? Lucy deserves for it to be perfect." Elvis set down his own guitar and looked at the boy seriously. "Theo, let me tell you something. I've performed in front of millions of people. I've played in the biggest stadiums and concert halls in the world. And you want to know a secret?" "What?" "I'm still scared before every single show." Theo's eyes widened. "Really? But you're Elvis Presley." "Being Elvis Presley doesn't make the fear go away. But I learned something from my friend Samuel, the one I told you about who died. He taught me that being scared means you care. If you weren't nervous, it would mean this didn't matter to you." "But what if I let Lucy down?" Elvis pulled the boy close. "Listen to me. You could play every note wrong, and you still wouldn't let her down. You know why? Because you're trying. Because you kept your promise. Because you loved her enough to learn music for her, even though it hurts. That's what matters." "It does hurt," Theo admitted quietly. "Sometimes when I'm playing, I miss her so much I can barely breathe." "I know, that's grief. It comes in waves even when you think you're doing okay. How do you deal with it?" Elvis thought about his own grief, the emptiness he'd felt since Samuel died. "Honestly, I wasn't dealing with it very well. I was just going through the motions, pretending everything was fine. But then I met you, and you showed me something important." "What?" "You showed me that the way through grief is to keep loving, even when it hurts. To keep playing music, keep making promises, keep believing that love matters. You're braver than I am, Theo." Theo leaned against Elvis's shoulder. "I don't feel brave. Brave people never do. They just keep going anyway." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun paint the sky in oranges and pinks, Lucia's favorite colors. Finally, Theo said, "Mr. Elvis, thank you for doing this, for all of it. Not just the concert, but for being my friend. For not thinking I'm weird because I talked to my dead sister. You're not weird, you're wonderful, and I'm honored to be your friend." The concert was scheduled for 3 weeks away. As the date approached, Elvis spent more and more time in the neighborhood. He helped with preparations. He practiced with Theo daily instead of twice a week. He got to know the people of Maple Street. He learned that Mr. Harrison was a widower who'd lost his wife to cancer, that Mrs. Chen had immigrated from China with nothing and built her store from scratch, that Reverend Johnson had started the church in an abandoned building 30 years ago, that Mrs. Patterson had been a jazz singer in her youth before arthritis stole her voice. Everyone had a story, everyone had known loss, and everyone had loved Lucia Martinez. "She used to leave drawings on people's doorsteps," Mr. Harrison told Elvis. "Little hearts and flowers, always in bright colors. I still have every one she gave me. She'd sing while walking to school," Mrs. Chen added. "Even when she was very sick, she'd sing. Your songs, mostly. She said they made her happy." Elvis felt the weight of that, knowing his music had brought joy to a dying little girl, that she'd spent her last month singing his songs. It made everything feel more important, more sacred. 1 week before the concert, Elvis met with Theo for a final practice session. "Are you ready?" he asked. Theo nodded, though his hands shook slightly. "I think so. I've practiced every song 100 times." "That's not what I meant. Are you ready? In here?" Elvis tapped his chest. "Because this concert is going to bring up a lot of feelings. Happiness, sadness, love, grief, all mixed together. You need to be prepared for that." Theo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When Lucy died, Mama told me she was gone, that I'd never see her again. But when I play music, I feel close to her, like she's right there with me, so maybe I'm ready, because even though I'll be sad, I'll also feel her with me. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Elvis said, his voice thick with emotion. Rosa came to the door. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying a lot lately as the concert date approached. "Elvis," she said, using his first name for the first time, "can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you really doing this? Please be honest with me." Elvis stood and walked to her. He took her hands in his. "Because your son saved my life," he said simply. "I don't mean that dramatically. I mean it literally. I was drowning in grief and emptiness, going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. Then I heard Theo play, and something woke up inside me. He reminded me that music can heal, that love doesn't end just because someone dies, that keeping promises matters even when it's hard." Rosa's tears spilled over. "He's just a little boy." "He's an extraordinary little boy. And so was your daughter. This concert isn't charity, Rosa. It's me paying back a debt. Theo gave me my heart back. Now I want to give him, in your whole neighborhood, something beautiful in return." Rosa hugged him tightly. "Thank you. Thank you for seeing us, for seeing Lucy, for making her matter." "She always mattered," Elvis said. "I'm just helping people remember that." The night before the concert, Elvis couldn't sleep. He walked through Graceland's empty halls thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 3 months ago, Samuel had died, and Elvis thought his passion for music had died with him. But it hadn't died. It had just been waiting for the right reason to come back to life. He thought about Theo's tears, Rosa's strength, Lucia's list of songs. He thought about a neighborhood coming together to honor a little girl who'd loved music. And he realized something profound. Music wasn't about stages or fame or money. It was about connection. It was about taking private pain and making it into something shared, something communal, something that said, "You're not alone." That's what Samuel had tried to teach him all those years ago. That's what Theo had shown him without even trying. Marcus found him in the music room at 3 in the morning. "Can't sleep." "Too excited," Elvis admitted. "I feel like I'm about to perform for the first time ever. Like everything I've done before was just practice for this." "That's a good thing." "I know. I just hope I can do it justice. I hope I can give that boy and his family the moment they deserve." Marcus smiled. "Elvis, you've already given them more than you know, just by showing up, just by caring. The concert is just the icing on the cake." "I hope you're right." "I am. Now get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." Elvis tried, but sleep didn't come. He lay in bed watching the hours tick by, his heart full of nervous energy and hope. Somewhere across town, Theo was doing the same thing, staring at his ceiling, holding his guitar, whispering to his sister. "Tomorrow, Lucy," he said into the darkness, "tomorrow everyone's going to hear your songs. Everyone's going to remember you. I kept my promise. I really did." And maybe, just maybe, somewhere beyond the reach of life and death, Lucia Martinez heard her brother's words and smiled. The day of the concert arrived with perfect weather, clear blue sky, warm sunshine, a gentle breeze that made everything feel like a blessing. Theo woke up early, his stomach full of butterflies. He'd barely slept, and when he did, he dreamed of Lucy sitting in the front row, clapping and singing along. He got dressed carefully in the clothes Elvis had bought him, simple but nice, dark pants and a white shirt. His mother had ironed them 3 times to make sure every crease was perfect. "You look so handsome, mijo," Rosa said, tears already forming in her eyes. "Lucy would be so proud." "I hope so, Mama." Rosa knelt down and took his hands. "Listen to me, Theo. No matter what happens today, you've already done something amazing. You kept your promise. You learned music for your sister. That's all that matters. But what if I mess up in front of everyone? Then you mess up. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. That's what Lucy always said." Theo hugged his mother tight. "I miss her, Mama." "I know, baby. I miss her too. Every single day." They held each other for a long moment, both crying, both remembering the little girl who'd loved music more than anything in the world. By early afternoon, the church parking lot had been completely transformed. The wooden stage stood decorated with streamers in bright colors. Yellows, pinks, oranges, all the colors Lucy had loved. Someone had painted flowers on the backdrop. Paper lanterns hung from wires, ready to glow when the sun went down. Hundreds of chairs had been set up in neat rows. A sound system, modest but functional, had been donated by a local music store whose owner had heard about the concert. People from the neighborhood started arriving hours early. They brought food to share, homemade dishes representing every culture on Maple Street. Mrs. Chen's spring roll sat next to Mrs. Patterson's fried chicken. Mr. Harrison brought his famous potato salad. Reverend Johnson's wife made 3 sweet potato pies. It became more than a concert. It became a community celebration. Elvis arrived at 4 o'clock, driving himself in a simple car. He dressed down, just jeans and a black button-up shirt. No sequins, no cape, no stage costume. He wanted to be a person, not a performer. Marcus was with him, carrying Elvis's guitar. "You ready?" Marcus asked. "I haven't been this nervous since my first recording session," Elvis admitted. "My hands are actually shaking." "That means you care." "I care so much it hurts." They found Theo backstage, really just a small area behind the wooden platform. The boy was pale, clutching his guitar like a life preserver. "Mr. Elvis," Theo whispered when he saw him, "there are so many people. I didn't think this many people would come." Elvis looked out at the crowd. Word had spread beyond the neighborhood. People from all over Memphis had heard about what was happening, a free concert by Elvis Presley to honor a little girl who died. The parking lot was packed, and more people stood along the edges. "They're here for Lucy," Elvis said gently. "They're here because they want to remember her and celebrate her. That's a beautiful thing." "But what if I forget the words? What if my fingers don't work? What if—" Elvis put his hands on Theo's shoulders. "Look at me. Breathe. You've practiced these songs 100 times. You know them in your sleep. But even if you mess up every single note, it won't matter. You know why? Why? Because you're playing with love, and love covers a multitude of mistakes. Trust me, I've made thousands of mistakes on stage, and people forgave every single one because they could feel that I cared." Theo took a deep breath. Okay, I can do this. "That's my boy." Rosa appeared looking beautiful in a simple blue dress. Theo had never seen his mother wear anything but work clothes. Seeing her dressed up made everything feel even more real. "It's almost time," she said. "Are you both ready?" Elvis and Theo looked at each other and nodded. At exactly 6 o'clock, as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, Reverend Johnson walked onto the stage. The crowd quieted immediately. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We're gathered here today for something very special. 3 months ago, this community lost one of its brightest lights. Lucia Martinez was only 8 years old, but she touched more hearts than most people do in a lifetime." People in the crowd nodded. Some wiped their eyes. Lucia loved music. She believed that music could heal, that it could make hearts stronger. And her favorite music was by Mr. Elvis Presley. Before she passed, she made her brother Theo promise to learn all her favorite songs. Today, Theo is keeping that promise with help from a very special friend. Please welcome Theo Martinez and Elvis Presley. The crowd erupted in applause. Elvis walked onto the stage first, waving humbly. Then Theo followed, his legs shaking so badly he almost tripped. Elvis caught his elbow and steadied him. They sat on simple wooden stools, their guitars across their laps. A single microphone stood between them. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Elvis leaned close to the microphone. "Thank you all for coming. Before we start, I want to say something. I performed in front of millions of people all over the world, but I've never been more honored to be on a stage than I am right now. Theo, do you want to say anything?" Theo looked terrified, but he leaned toward the microphone. His voice came out small and shaky. "This is for my sister Lucy. She loved these songs. She loved music. She loved all of you. I miss her every day. But when I play, I feel like she's still here with me. So thank you for coming to remember her." Many people in the crowd were already crying. Elvis put his hand on Theo's shoulder. "Let's start with the song that brought us together. The song Theo was playing the first day I met him." They positioned their guitars. Theo's hands trembled on the strings. Then Elvis began to play Love Me Tender, and Theo joined in. At first, Theo was stiff, mechanical, hitting the notes but not feeling them. But then Elvis started to sing, his voice warm and gentle, and something shifted. Theo closed his eyes just like he did every evening on his porch. He stopped thinking about the crowd, about the pressure, about getting it right. He just thought about Lucy. He saw her face in his mind, her smile, her laugh, the way she'd dance around their tiny kitchen. He remembered her saying, "Music makes hearts stronger," in her small, serious voice. And suddenly, He wasn't scared anymore. His fingers moved with confidence. His playing blended perfectly with Elvis's singing. They were making music together, real music, the kind that came from the soul. When the song ended, there was a moment of pure silence. Then the crowd erupted. People stood. They cheered. They cried. Theo opened his eyes, stunned. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. Elvis smiled at him and mouthed, "See? You're amazing." They played song after song from Lucia's list. Can't Help Falling in Love, Hound Dog, In the Ghetto, Suspicious Minds. Each one was performed with love and care, Elvis's legendary voice blending with Theo's earnest guitar playing. Between songs, Elvis told stories about music and loss and love. He talked about his own grief, about Samuel, about learning from a 10-year-old boy that keeping promises mattered more than being perfect. "Grief doesn't have an expiration date," Elvis said into the microphone. "You don't get over losing someone you love. You just learn to carry them with you. And music is one of the ways we carry them. Every note is a memory. Every song is a conversation with someone who's gone." People in the crowd nodded. Everyone there had lost someone. Everyone understood. Midway through the concert, as the sun painted the sky in oranges and golds, Lucy's colors, something unexpected happened. People began lighting candles. It started with Mrs. Chen in the front row. She pulled out a small candle and lit it, holding it up. Then Mrs. Patterson did the same. Then Mr. Harrison. Then Reverend Johnson. Within minutes, the entire crowd held flickering lights, hundreds of tiny flames against the twilight sky. Theo saw it and stopped playing, overwhelmed. "Look," he whispered to Elvis. "Look at what they're doing." Elvis felt his throat tighten. This moment, this beautiful, spontaneous moment, was more moving than any sold-out stadium show he'd ever performed. "They're honoring her," Elvis said. "They're honoring Lucy." Theo's eyes filled with tears. "She would have loved this so much. I know she would have." Without any planning, someone in the crowd started singing along to the next song. Then another voice joined. Then another. Soon the entire neighborhood was singing together. Can't Help Falling in Love. Voices blending in imperfect harmony, no rehearsal, just pure emotion. Theo and Elvis kept playing while everyone sang. It was messy and beautiful and real. When the song ended, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere. They were nearing the end of the concert. The sun had fully set now, and the paper lanterns glowed overhead. The candles still flickered in people's hands. Elvis leaned toward the microphone. "We have one more song on Lucia's list." It was her favorite. "And Theo has been practicing it every single day for 3 months. This is for you, Lucy, wherever you are." Theo positioned his fingers on the guitar strings. This was it. The final song, the end of the promise he'd made to his sister. But before he could start playing, something happened. A small voice called out from somewhere in the crowd. "Theo?" Theo's hands froze. His heart stopped. He knew that voice. Everyone turned, looking for the source. Through the crowd, moving slowly, carefully, came a figure. A small girl holding a nurse's hand, thin and fragile, wearing a hospital bracelet on her wrist. The girl had dark hair and big brown eyes and a smile that could light up the world. It was Lucia Martinez. The crowd gasped collectively. People stood up, confused, shocked, unable to process what they were seeing. Rosa screamed. She actually screamed, her hand flying to her mouth, her body going rigid with shock. Theo dropped his guitar. It clattered on the stage with a discordant noise. "Lucy?" he whispered. "Lucy?" He jumped off the stage and ran. He ran faster than he'd ever run in his life, pushing through the crowd, not caring about anything except reaching his sister. They collided in a tangle of arms and tears. Theo wrapped himself around Lucy, sobbing so hard he couldn't breathe. She held him just as tightly, her small body shaking. "You're alive," Theo kept saying. "You're alive. You're alive. You're alive." "I heard you," Lucy whispered into his ear. "Every night. I heard you playing for me." Rosa reached them, falling to her knees, pulling both her children into her arms. She was crying so hard no sound came out, just tears and gasping breaths in disbelief. The crowd stood frozen, watching this impossible reunion. On the stage, Elvis remained seated, tears streaming down his face. Marcus stood beside him, both men overwhelmed by what was happening. "Did you know?" Marcus whispered. Elvis nodded. "I've known for 2 weeks. The doctors told me not to say anything until they were certain. But she made it, Marcus. She actually made it." Slowly, gradually, Theo pulled back from his sister. He looked at her like she might disappear if he blinked. "But Mama said, she told me you died. I went to your funeral. I didn't die," Lucy said softly. Her voice was weak, but it was real. It was her. "I was in a special hospital in a coma. Mama thought I was going to die. So she told you I did because she didn't want you to hope and then lose me for real." Theo looked at his mother. "You lied to me?" Rosa's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. The doctor said she had a 10% chance. 10%? I couldn't watch you hope every day and then have to tell you she died anyway. I thought I was protecting you, but I thought she was dead. I've been playing for a ghost for 3 months." "You weren't playing for a ghost," Lucy said, pulling his attention back to her. "The nurses played recordings of you every single day while I was sleeping. They said familiar voices might help me wake up. And it worked, Theo. Your music brought me back. Just like I always said, music makes hearts stronger." Theo stared at his sister, trying to process everything. "So, you've been alive this whole time?" "Since 3 weeks ago," Lucy said. "They did surgery while I was in the coma. An experimental procedure. Mr. Elvis paid for everything." Theo's head snapped up. He looked toward the stage where Elvis sat. "Mr. Elvis knew?" Elvis stood and walked to the front of the stage. "Yes, Theo, I knew. I found out the day after we met. My friend made some calls and discovered that your sister wasn't dead. She was in a specialized facility preparing for surgery. They'd induced a coma to give her body rest." "Why didn't you tell me?" Theo's voice was angry now, hurt. "Because the doctors made me promise not to. They said the surgery had a very low chance of success. They didn't want to give you hope and then have you lose her for real if it didn't work. But 3 weeks ago, she woke up. And last week, they told me she was strong enough to come home." Rosa stood, helping Lucy stay upright. "You paid for the surgery? This whole time?" "Yes, ma'am, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But I needed to be sure she'd survive before I told anyone. I needed to wait until the doctors were certain." Theo felt like his brain was melting. His sister was alive. She'd been alive this whole time. Elvis had known and kept it secret. "I thought I was keeping a promise to a dead person," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I was playing for a ghost." "You were keeping a promise to me," Lucy said firmly, taking his hand. "A promise that saved my life. The doctors said hearing your music every day helped my brain heal. You brought me back, Theo. You really did. But why lie? Why make me think you were dead?" Rosa knelt beside her son. "Because I was a coward. Because I was so scared of losing her that I convinced myself she was already gone. I thought it would hurt less if we grieved right away instead of hoping and then losing her. I was wrong, Theo. I was so wrong. Can you forgive me?" Theo looked at his mother, at his sister, at Elvis standing on the stage. His whole world had been turned upside down in a matter of minutes. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't know what I feel right now." Lucy squeezed his hand. "Feel whatever you need to feel. Be angry if you need to be angry. But please, Theo, please just be happy I'm here. I missed you so much." Theo looked at his sister, really looked at her. She was so thin. Her skin was pale. She had a long scar visible at the collar of her shirt where they'd operated on her heart. But she was alive. She was alive and smiling and holding his hand. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. Theo threw himself at his sister again, hugging her so tightly the nurse had to remind him to be gentle. "I'm happy you're here," he sobbed into her shoulder. "I'm so happy you're here. I missed you every single day, every single second. I know. I heard you tell me every night." The crowd, which had been watching in stunned silence, suddenly erupted. People cheered and cried and hugged each other. Strangers embraced. The whole neighborhood celebrated this impossible miracle. On stage, Elvis wiped his eyes. This moment, this perfect, beautiful moment, was worth more than every sold-out concert he'd ever performed. Marcus put his hand on Elvis's shoulder. "You did this?" "No," Elvis said. Theo did this. His love did this. I just paid some medical bills. He's the one who kept playing, kept believing, kept loving his sister even when he thought she was gone. That's the real miracle here. Slowly, the Martinez family made their way back to the stage. Lucy was exhausted. You could see it in how she leaned on the nurse, but she refused to leave. "I want to hear you play," she told Theo. "That's why I'm here. I've been listening to recordings for 3 months. Now I want to hear it for real." Theo looked at Elvis uncertainly. "Can we still finish the concert?" "That's up to you," Elvis said. "This is your moment." Theo picked up his guitar. His hands were still shaking, but now it was from joy instead of fear. Lucy sat in a chair at the front of the stage, the nurse beside her. Rosa stood nearby, unable to stop touching her daughter's hair, her face, her hands, making sure she was real. Theo looked at his sister. "This last song was your favorite. I've been practicing it for you every single day." Lucy smiled. "I know, I heard." Theo began to play. Elvis joined in, and together they performed "Love Me Tender" one more time. But this time, Lucy sang along. Her voice was weak and scratchy from months of not using it. She couldn't hit all the notes, but she sang anyway, tears streaming down her face, smiling through them. Everyone in the crowd sang too. Hundreds of voices all joined together, all celebrating life and love and music and miracles. When the song ended, the applause was deafening. Theo set down his guitar and jumped off the stage. He hugged his sister one more time, both of them crying, both of them laughing. "I kept my promise," he whispered to her. "You did," she whispered back. "You really did." The crowd remained standing, many people still crying, all of them trying to understand what they just witnessed. This wasn't just a concert anymore. This was something none of them would ever forget. Elvis stepped to the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. I think we all need to understand what just happened here, because I know you're all as confused as Theo was a few minutes ago." The crowd quieted, everyone leaning forward to hear. Elvis took a deep breath. "The story I'm about to tell you, I've kept secret for weeks. It was the hardest secret I've ever had to keep. But I made a promise to doctors, and keeping promises, as Theo has taught all of us, that's what matters most." He looked at Rosa, who nodded through her tears, giving him permission to continue. 3 months ago, Lucia Martinez's heart began to fail. The doctors told Rosa that without surgery, Lucy wouldn't survive. But the surgery cost more money than most families will see in a lifetime. Rosa did everything she could, worked 3 jobs, borrowed from everyone she knew. But it wasn't enough. People in the crowd murmured. Many of them had known the Martinez family was struggling, but they hadn't known the details. Lucy's condition got worse, Elvis continued. Her heart stopped in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The doctors revived her, but barely. They told Rosa that Lucy was dying, that there was nothing more they could do. Rosa sobbed openly now, remembering that terrible day. So Rosa made an impossible choice. She told Theo that his sister had died. She held a memorial service. She tried to help her son grieve and move on. But what Rosa didn't know, what none of us knew, was that the hospital had contacted a specialist, a cardiac surgeon in another city who was working with experimental procedures for children with Lucy's condition. Elvis paused, looking out at the sea of faces. The day after the memorial service, the specialist called Rosa. He said there was a chance, a very small chance, that Lucy could be saved, but it would require immediate surgery, a medically induced coma, and months of recovery in a specialized facility. The cost would be over $200,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That was an impossible amount. Rosa didn't know what to do. She'd already told Theo his sister was dead. She couldn't bear to tell him Lucy was alive, only to watch him hope and then potentially lose her anyway. The doctor said Lucy had maybe a 10% chance of survival. Maybe. Elvis's voice cracked. He had to pause to collect himself. But the specialist said something interesting. He said that coma patients sometimes respond to familiar voices, to music, to sounds from home. He said it might help Lucy's brain heal if she could hear the people she loved. On stage beside Lucy, Theo was beginning to understand. His eyes went wide. 2 days after I met Theo on his porch, my friend Marcus made some calls. He discovered that Lucy wasn't dead. She was in a coma at St. Michael's Medical Center, 90 miles from here. The surgery had already happened. She was alive, but barely, fighting every single day to come back. Elvis looked directly at Theo now. I called the hospital immediately. I spoke to the surgeon. I told him I would pay for everything. The surgery, the facility, the experimental treatments, all of it. Every single penny. But I made him promise not to tell anyone, including the Martinez family. Not until we were absolutely certain Lucy would survive. Why? Rosa called out. Why keep it secret? Because the doctor convinced me it was the right thing to do. He said telling Theo that Lucy was alive, only to have him lose her again if she died, would destroy him. He said it was kinder to let Theo believe she was already gone. I didn't agree with that decision, but I respected it. It wasn't my choice to make. Elvis wiped his eyes. But then something amazing happened. The nurses at the facility started playing recordings of Theo's guitar playing for Lucy. Every single evening at sunset, just like clockwork. They'd play the recordings next to her bed, and Lucy's brain activity would spike. Her vital signs would improve. The doctors said it was remarkable, like she was fighting to come back because she could hear her brother's music. Theo's hands flew to his mouth. She could hear me? Every single note, Elvis said. The nurses recorded you from the street with your permission. Do you remember that nice lady who asked if she could record you playing one evening about a month ago? Theo nodded slowly. He'd thought she was just a fan of Elvis who wanted to hear him practice. That was Nurse Peterson from St. Michael's. She worked with Lucy every day. She told me that Lucy would move her fingers sometimes when she heard your music, like she was trying to play along. Your love, Theo, your refusal to give up on your promise, that's what brought her back. The crowd was completely silent now except for the sound of crying. Elvis continued, his voice stronger now. 3 weeks ago, Lucy woke up. The surgery had worked. Her new heart valve was functioning. She was weak and confused, but she was alive and conscious. The first thing she asked for was her brother. Lucy nodded, tears streaming down her face. I did. I wanted Theo. The doctors told me they wanted to keep her for observation, to make sure she was stable before bringing her home. They made me promise not to tell anyone until they were certain. So for 3 weeks, I've been carrying this secret, watching Theo play for his sister every evening, knowing she was alive but not being able to say anything. It was torture. Marcus stepped forward then. I was the only person who knew, besides Elvis, and I've been helping coordinate Lucy's care and eventual return home. Today was always the plan, to bring her here, to this concert, to reveal the truth in front of everyone who loved her. Rosa stood on shaky legs. You've been paying for everything this whole time? The surgery, the facility, the treatments? Yes, ma'am, and I'd do it again 1,000 times over. But why? We're nobody, we're just… You're not nobody, Elvis interrupted firmly. You're a family who showed me what really matters. Theo reminded me that music isn't about fame or fortune. It's about love. It's about keeping promises even when it breaks your heart. Your son saved me from drowning in my own grief. The least I could do was try to save his sister. Elvis walked to the edge of the stage and knelt down so he was at Lucy's eye level. Lucy, I know we haven't officially met yet, but I feel like I know you. Your brother has told me so much about you, about your drawings, your dreams, your belief that music makes hearts stronger. And you know what? You were right. Your music, the music your brother played for you every single day, it did make your heart stronger. Strong enough to survive. Lucy smiled at him, her eyes full of wonder. You're really him. You're really Elvis Presley. I'm really me, and I'm honored to finally meet you. I had a list, Lucy said softly, a list of songs I wanted to hear before I grew up, and at the very top was Love Me Tender, sung by you. I thought I'd never get to hear it for real. But you did, just now. I sang it for you. It was even better than I imagined, Lucy whispered. Elvis had to turn away for a moment, overcome with emotion. Theo sat on the stage steps, trying to process everything. His sister was alive. She'd been alive this whole time. The doctors had saved her. Elvis had paid for it. His music had helped her heal. It was too much, too big, too impossible. Lucy moved slowly from her chair and sat beside him. The nurse tried to object, but Lucy waved her off. "Are you mad at me?" Lucy asked quietly. "Mad at you? Why would I be mad at you?" "Because I was alive and nobody told you. Because you thought I was dead and I wasn't." Theo looked at his sister, his miracle sister who shouldn't be here but was. "I'm not mad at you. I could never be mad at you." "What about Mama? Are you mad at her?" Theo looked over at Rosa, who stood talking with Elvis and Marcus, her whole body shaking with relief and residual fear and joy all mixed together. "I don't know," Theo admitted. "Maybe a little. She lied to me. She let me think you were dead. She thought she was protecting you." "I know, but it still hurt." Lucy took his hand. "Theo, when I was in the coma, I could hear things sometimes, like I was underwater and people were talking above the surface. I heard Mama crying. I heard her telling me she was sorry, that she'd made a mistake, that she should have told you the truth. She was scared, Theo. People do stupid things when they're scared." "I played for you every single day," Theo said, his voice breaking. "Every evening at sunset. I sat on our porch and played all your favorite songs. I talked to you like you could hear me. I could hear you. Not all the time, but sometimes. Your music was like a rope pulling me back. The doctors said I shouldn't have survived, but I did. Because of you." Theo started crying again. "I missed you so much. Every single second of every single day." "I know, I missed you too. Even when I was sleeping, I missed you." They sat together holding hands, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. The crowd watched this reunion, this miracle, and understood they were witnessing something sacred, something that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Reverend Johnson stepped forward, his voice booming across the parking lot. "I think we all need a moment to thank the Lord for this blessing. Can we bow our heads?" Everyone in the crowd bowed their heads, believers and non-believers alike. "Dear God," Reverend Johnson prayed, "we don't always understand your plan. Sometimes it looks like darkness. Sometimes it looks like loss. But tonight, you've shown us that miracles still happen, that love still wins, that music still heals. Thank you for bringing Lucia back to us. Thank you for Elvis, who saw this family's pain and chose to help. Thank you for Theo, who kept his promise even when it broke his heart. And thank you for reminding all of us that we're never truly alone. Amen." "Amen," echoed through the crowd. When people raised their heads, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere. Elvis addressed the crowd again. "I know this has been overwhelming. I know you all have questions, but I want to make something clear. This concert tonight wasn't about me being charitable. It wasn't about publicity or recognition. It was about honoring a little girl who believed in the power of music. And she was right. Music did save her. Theo's music, played with pure love, brought her back from the edge of death." He paused, looking around at all the faces. "I'm also announcing tonight the creation of the Lucia Martinez Foundation for Children's Heart Health. Every penny I make from my next album will go to this foundation. We're going to help other families who can't afford the surgeries their children need. We're going to make sure no parent has to choose between hope and grief. We're going to save lives in Lucia's name." The crowd erupted in applause. Rosa climbed onto the stage, shaking so badly Elvis had to steady her. She took the microphone with trembling hands. "I don't have fancy words," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm just a mother who works 3 jobs and can barely keep food on the table. But I want to say thank you. Thank you to Elvis for saving my daughter's life. Thank you to this community for showing up tonight. Thank you to God for this miracle. And most of all, thank you to my son Theo, who loved his sister so much that he brought her back through music. I don't deserve either of you, but I'm grateful every day that you're mine." She broke down completely then, unable to continue. Theo stood and hugged his mother. Then Lucy joined them, all 3 holding each other on stage while hundreds of people watched and cried with them. Elvis quietly stepped back, letting the Martinez family have their moment. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about them. Marcus appeared beside him. "You did a good thing here. We all did. This whole community came together. But you started it. You saw a kid on a porch and decided to care. That changed everything. Elvis watched Theo, Rosa, and Lucy holding each other, their small family reunited against all odds. "You know what the crazy thing is?" Elvis said quietly. "I came here thinking I was going to help them, but they helped me. Theo showed me that grief doesn't mean giving up on love. Rosa showed me that strength looks like getting up every day even when you're broken. And Lucy, even in a coma, showed me that music really does have power, real power. So what now? Now we keep the promise. We build the foundation. We help other families. We make sure Lucy's story saves more lives than just her own." Marcus smiled. "Samuel would be proud of you." "I hope so. I finally feel like I'm honoring his memory the right way. Not by performing on big stages, but by using what I have to make a real difference." As the evening wore on, people began to leave, but slowly, reluctantly. Nobody wanted this magical night to end. They hugged the Martinez family. They thanked Elvis. They promised to volunteer for the foundation. Mrs. Chen approached Lucy with a small bag. "I brought you candy, all your favorites. Your mama can't tell you no anymore, not after what you've been through." Lucy laughed and thanked her. Mr. Harrison gave Theo his junkyard key. "You earned this, son. You can keep working for me as long as you want, and your pay just went up to $10 a week." Mrs. Patterson kissed both children's foreheads. "I'm going to finish sewing that blanket I started for you, Lucy. Blue with clouds, just like your old one. You'll have it by next week." The community wrapped around the Martinez family like a protective embrace, promising without words that they'd never be alone again. Finally, only a few people remained. The nurses said Lucy needed a rest. This had been too much excitement for someone still recovering. "Can I come back tomorrow?" Theo asked his sister as the nurse prepared to take her home. "You better," Lucy said, squeezing his hand. "We have 3 months of talking to catch up on. I want to hear every single thing that happened while I was sleeping. It's going to take a while. A lot happened." "Good. We have all the time in the world now." They hugged one more time, neither wanting to let go. Elvis watched from a distance, his heart full. As the nurse helped Lucy to the medical van that would take her home, Lucy called out, "Mr. Elvis?" "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for saving my life, and thank you for being Theo's friend. He needed you." Elvis's voice caught in his throat. "He saved me too, Lucy. More than you know." The van drove away, carrying Lucy back to the life that had almost ended 3 months ago. Theo stood in the empty parking lot, watching the taillights disappear. Elvis came and stood beside him. "You okay?" Elvis asked. "I don't know," Theo said honestly. "I'm happy, like happier than I've ever been. But I'm also confused and a little angry and overwhelmed, and I don't even know what else." "That's normal. You just got your whole world turned upside down. Will things go back to how they were before, when Lucy wasn't sick?" Elvis put his hand on Theo's shoulder. "No, things won't go back. They'll go forward. That's different. Lucy's heart is fixed, but she'll need care for the rest of her life. You've learned things these past 3 months, about loss, about music, about keeping promises, that you can't unlearn. Your family will be different now, but different doesn't mean worse. Will you still visit us, now that Lucy's back and the concert is over?" Elvis knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Theo, I made you a promise. I said I'd teach you guitar. I don't break my promises. Besides, you're my friend now. Friends don't just disappear." Theo threw his arms around Elvis's neck. "Thank you for everything, for the guitar, for the lessons, for saving Lucy, for seeing me when nobody else did. You made yourself easy to see, son. You were the one sitting on a porch, keeping a promise even when it hurt. That takes a rare kind of courage." Rosa approached them, exhausted but glowing with relief. "Elvis, I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't need to repay me. Just take care of those beautiful children. That's payment enough. The foundation you mentioned, is that real?" "It's real. My lawyers are already drawing up the paperwork. By next month, we'll be operational. And Rosa, I'd like you to be on the board. Nobody understands what families like yours need better than you do." Rosa's mouth fell open. "Me? On a board? You've navigated an impossible situation with grace. You've worked 3 jobs. You've sacrificed everything for your children. That's exactly the perspective we need. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You'll learn, and you won't be alone. We'll have doctors, lawyers, advisors, but we need a voice for the families. We need someone who's lived it. Will you do it? Rosa nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Good. We'll talk details next week. For now, go home. Be with your children. Celebrate this miracle. As Rosa and Theo walked toward their car, Theo turned back one more time. Mr. Elvis? He called. Yeah? Lucy's list. We played all the songs on it tonight. Does that mean I kept my promise? Is it finished? Elvis smiled. The promise to play those specific songs? Yes, that's kept. But I think Lucy would want you to keep playing music for the rest of your life. Not because you promised her, but because you love it. Can you do that? Theo thought about it, then nodded. I think I can. Music doesn't hurt as much anymore. It feels good again. That's because you're not playing for grief anymore. You're playing for joy. That's the best kind of music. Theo smiled, a real, genuine, happy smile. Then he and Rosa got in their car and drove away. Marcus appeared with Elvis's guitar case. Ready to head home? Yeah, I'm ready. As they walked to the car, Elvis looked back at the empty stage, the discarded decorations, the chairs being folded up by volunteers. This was the best show I've ever done, Elvis said quietly, and nobody will ever see it on television or hear it on the radio. It'll just be a memory. Sometimes the best things aren't meant to be recorded, Marcus said. Sometimes they're just meant to be felt. Elvis nodded. Samuel taught me that once. I forgot it for a while, but I remember now. They drove away from the church parking lot, leaving behind a neighborhood forever changed by music, love, and the miracle of a little girl who came back from the edge of death because her brother refused to stop playing. They drove away from the church parking lot, leaving behind a neighborhood forever changed by music, love, and the miracle of a little girl who came back from the edge of death because her brother refused to stop playing. February 1974. Theo Martinez sat at the kitchen table doing his homework, his guitar leaning against the wall nearby. It was always close now, not because he had to play it, but because he wanted it near, like a friend, like a promise kept. From the living room came the sound of Lucy's laughter. She was watching television with Mama, something about a cartoon dog. Her laugh was still a little breathless. Her new heart valve meant she couldn't run or play as hard as other kids, but it was real and bright and alive. That sound, that laugh, was Theo's favorite music now. 6 months had passed since the concert, 6 months since the world turned upside down and then right side up again. 6 months of learning that miracles were real and complicated and messy and beautiful all at the same time. Lucy had come home from the hospital 3 days after the concert. Their small house had never felt so full. Neighbors brought food for weeks. Mrs. Chen stopped by every day with soup. Mr. Harrison built Lucy a special chair that helped her sit comfortably while she recovered. Mrs. Patterson finished the cloud blanket and brought it wrapped in tissue paper like a treasure. The first week home, Lucy slept most of the time, her body exhausted from months of fighting. But when she was awake, she wanted to hear everything, every detail of what had happened while she was in the coma. Theo told her about finding the broken guitar in the junkyard, about learning to play by himself, his fingers bleeding but determined, about meeting Elvis on the porch, about the lessons and the friendship and the planning for the concert. Lucy listened to it all with wide eyes, interrupting to ask questions, to laugh, to cry. "You really thought I was dead?" she asked one afternoon, her voice small. "I really did," Theo admitted. "Mama told me you were gone. We had a memorial service. I saw your empty bed every night, thought you weren't coming back. That must have been so scary." "It was, but it also made me keep my promise to you. I played every single day because I thought it was the only way to stay connected to you." Lucy reached for his hand. "And it worked. Even though nobody knew it would, it worked. Your music saved me, Theo. The doctor said so." That was the part Theo was still trying to understand. How could his clumsy guitar playing have saved anyone? But the doctors had explained it. Something about how familiar sounds could help coma patients' brains heal, how love could literally be measured in brainwave activity, how Lucy's vital signs had improved every time they played his recordings. Science and miracles, it turned out, weren't opposites. Sometimes they were the same thing. Elvis had kept his promise too. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, he still came for guitar lessons. Not in a limousine anymore. He drove himself in a regular car, dressed in regular clothes, just another person on Maple Street. Except he wasn't just another person. He was family now. The lessons had changed, though. They weren't just about music anymore. They were about life. Elvis told stories about his own childhood in Memphis, about his mother who'd believed in him when nobody else did, about learning that fame didn't equal happiness. The most important things in life are the things you can't buy, Elvis said during one lesson. Family, friendship, love, purpose. I had to relearn that. You taught me that, Theo. Sometimes Lucy would sit with them during lessons, wrapped in her cloud blanket, singing softly along. Her voice was still weak, but getting stronger every week. The doctor said her recovery was remarkable, faster than anyone had expected. It's because she has something to sing about, one doctor told Rosa. She has hope. That matters more than medicine sometimes. Elvis had also kept his bigger promise. The Lucia Martinez Foundation for Children's Heart Health was real and growing. The office was modest, just 3 rooms in a building downtown, but the impact was already enormous. In 6 months, they'd helped 12 families pay for their children's heart surgeries. 12 children who would have died now had a chance at life. 12 families who'd been drowning in medical bills and despair now had hope. Rosa worked at the foundation part-time, helping families navigate the application process, sitting with parents who were scared and overwhelmed, being the voice of someone who'd lived through it. You should see her, Elvis told Theo during one lesson. Your mother is incredible. She helps these families understand they're not alone. She gives them hope. Theo felt proud every time he thought about it. His mama, who'd worked 3 jobs just to survive, was now helping save lives. His sister, who'd almost died, was getting stronger every day. And he'd learned to play guitar. Really play. Not just hitting notes, but making music. All because he'd kept a promise. School had been hard at first. Everyone knew about Theo and Lucy now. The concert had been covered by local news. Elvis had allowed limited media coverage afterward, wanting to spread the word about the foundation. So Theo and Lucy had become famous in their own small way. Some kids at school were nice about it. Others were weird. A few were mean. Your sister was dead and came back to life? That's creepy, one boy said. Theo had punched him. It was the first and only time he'd ever hit someone. He'd gotten suspended for 3 days, but he didn't regret it. Elvis came over the evening after the suspension, wanting to understand what had happened. He said Lucy was creepy, Theo explained, his hands still shaking from anger. He said it like she was some kind of zombie or monster. She's not. She's just my sister who got a second chance. I know, Elvis said calmly. And I understand why you hit him. But Theo, you can't punch everyone who says something ignorant. There will always be people who don't understand. So what am I supposed to do? You live your life so fully, so joyfully that their words don't matter. You show them through your actions that miracles are real. You let Lucy's life speak louder than their ignorance. It was hard advice to follow, but Theo tried. He focused on the good, on the friends who stood by him, on the teachers who understood, on the music that still brought him peace. Lucy faced her own challenges. She couldn't participate in gym class. She had to take pills 3 times a day. She got tired easily and sometimes needed to rest in the middle of the school day. But she never complained. If anything, she was happier than before she got sick. I appreciate things now, she told Theo one evening. Like, really appreciate them. The way the sun feels on my face. The taste of Mrs. Chen's spring rolls. The sound of you playing guitar. I don't take any of it for granted anymore. Is that because you almost died? Maybe. Or maybe it's because I learned that life is a gift, not a guarantee. Every day I'm here is a bonus day, so I want to make them all count. Theo thought his 8-year-old sister was wiser than most adults. The neighborhood had changed too. The concert had brought people together in a way nothing else had. Neighbors who'd lived next to each other for years but never talked now had cookouts together. Mrs. Chen taught Mrs. Patterson how to make dumplings. Mr. Harrison joined Reverend Johnson's church. Maple Street felt like a real community now instead of just a collection of houses. And at the center of it all was the Martinez family, the little family who'd suffered so much and survived. People still asked for autographs when Elvis visited, but respectfully from a distance. He always stopped to sign them, to take pictures, to talk for a few minutes. But everyone understood that his time with the Martinez family was sacred. Those Tuesday and Thursday evenings belonged to Theo. One Thursday in early February, 6 months after the concert, Elvis arrived with news. "My new album comes out next week," he told Theo and Lucy as they sat together on the porch. The same porch where everything had begun. "I recorded it over the past 4 months, and I want you both to hear it before anyone else does." He pulled out a record player and a vinyl album. The cover showed Elvis in simple clothes holding a guitar, looking directly at the camera. No fancy costume, no elaborate staging, just him. The album was called Love Me Tender, Songs of Promise. "Every song on this album is about keeping promises," Elvis explained, "about love that doesn't quit, about hope that survives darkness, about music that heals. It's the most personal album I've ever made." He played it for them there on the porch as the sun set, Lucy's favorite time. The songs were beautiful, some covers of classics, some new material Elvis had written himself. The final track was called The Boy and the Guitar. It was an instrumental piece, just Elvis on guitar, playing a melody that sounded exactly like what Theo had played that first day they met. "You wrote a song about me?" Theo asked, stunned. "I wrote a song about all of us," Elvis said. "About what happened here, about what you taught me. I wanted to capture it, to remember it forever." Lucy started crying. "It's beautiful." "Just like you," Elvis said, ruffling her hair. He told them that all the profits from the album would go to the foundation, every single penny. "The early numbers suggest it's going to be one of my best-selling albums," Elvis said, "which means the foundation is going to help a lot of children. All because you kept a promise to your sister, Theo. All because your love was bigger than your grief." Rosa came out with lemonade and cookies. She looked different now, still tired from working, but lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. "Tell them your news," Elvis prompted her. Rosa smiled shyly. "The foundation board offered me a full-time position, coordinator of family services. It pays more than all 3 of my old jobs combined. I said yes." Theo and Lucy jumped up and hugged their mother. No more 3 jobs, no more coming home at midnight exhausted, no more choosing between groceries and rent. "We're going to be okay," Rosa whispered, holding both her children. "We're really going to be okay." As the evening wore on and the sky turned from gold to purple to dark blue, they all sat together on the porch. Elvis, Marcus, who'd arrived later, Rosa, Theo, and Lucy. "Can I ask you something?" Lucy said to Elvis. "Anything, sweetheart." "Why did you really do all this? Like the real reason. Not the nice things you say in public, but the truth." Elvis was quiet for a long moment, thinking about how to answer honestly. "The truth is, I was lost," he said finally. "I'd forgotten why music mattered. I was just going through the motions, performing because it was my job, not because it meant anything. Then I heard Theo playing on this porch and I remembered. Music isn't about being famous or making hit records. It's about connection. It's about love. You and Theo reminded me of that. So we helped you? You saved me, just like I helped save you. I think that's how life is supposed to work. We save each other." Lucy thought about this, then nodded. "I like that. We all need saving sometimes." "We do, and we all need people who refuse to give up on us, even when things look impossible." Theo looked at his sister, at her bright eyes and growing strength, at the miracle of her being here when she shouldn't be. "I would have played for you forever," he told her, "even if you'd never woken up. Even if nobody had ever heard it but me. I would have kept my promise." "I know," Lucy said. "That's why it worked. That's why I came back. Love that strong can't be ignored, even by death." Later that night, after Elvis and Marcus had left, after Lucy had gone to bed exhausted but happy, Theo sat alone in his room with his guitar. He looked at the old broken one sitting on his shelf, the four-string miracle that had started everything. He'd kept it, just like Elvis suggested. It reminded him of where he'd begun, of how far he'd come. Then he picked up the Gibson Elvis had given him and began to play. Not because he had to, not because he'd promised anyone, just because he wanted to. The music flowed out into the night, soft and gentle and full of joy instead of grief. From her room across the hall, Lucy heard it and smiled in her sleep. In the kitchen, Rosa heard it and said a quiet prayer of thanks. And somewhere across town, Elvis heard it too, not with his ears but with his heart, and felt at peace for the first time in a year. 1 year after the concert, August 1974. The one-year anniversary celebration was smaller than the original concert, but more meaningful. The neighborhood gathered again in the church parking lot, which now had a permanent plaque. In memory of love that never dies, dedicated to Lucia Martinez and to every child fighting for tomorrow, August 1973. Lucy was there, of course, strong enough now to stand and walk around without getting winded. She'd grown taller, her cheeks had color, her eyes sparkled with life. The Lucia Martinez Foundation had helped 43 children by now. 43 lives saved, 43 families given hope. Theo played guitar on the same wooden stage, now maintained by the community as a permanent fixture. He played all of Lucy's favorite songs just like he had a year ago. But this time, Lucy sang along in a voice that was strong and clear and beautiful. Elvis was there, but he didn't perform. He sat in the audience next to Rosa and Marcus and the rest of the community. Just another person celebrating a miracle. When Theo finished playing, he looked out at the crowd and said something he'd been practicing for weeks. "A year ago, I thought my life was over because my sister died. Except she hadn't died. She was fighting to come back. And while she was fighting, I was playing music. I didn't know it would save her. I just knew I had to keep my promise." He paused, gathering his courage. "I learned something from all this. I learned that love doesn't end just because someone's not with you. I learned that keeping promises matters, even when it's hard. And I learned that music really can heal, not just hearts in your chest, but hearts that are broken from missing someone." The crowd was silent, listening to every word. "My sister Lucy taught me that music makes hearts stronger. She was right, but it's not just the music itself. It's what the music carries. Love, hope, memory, connection. That's what makes us strong." Lucy walked onto the stage and hugged her brother. They stood together, alive and whole and grateful. "Thank you all for being here," Lucy said into the microphone. "Thank you for remembering. Thank you for caring. And thank you for showing us that we're not alone." The crowd stood and applauded, many crying, all of them moved by these two children who taught a whole community about resilience and love. After the celebration ended, as people were cleaning up and heading home, Elvis pulled Theo aside. "I need to tell you something," Elvis said. "Okay. I'm going on tour next month. Big venues, sold-out shows, the whole thing. But I want you to know, I'm going because I want to now, not because I have to. You gave me back my passion for performing, so thank you. I didn't do anything special. You kept a promise even when it broke your heart. That's the most special thing anyone can do." They hugged, this unlikely pair, the king of rock and roll and a 10-year-old boy from Maple Street who'd saved each other without even trying. "Will you still visit?" Theo asked. "Even when you're on tour?" "Every time I'm in Memphis, that's my promise to you, and I always keep my promises." 5 years later, 1978, Theo was 15 now, tall and confident, still playing guitar, but also studying hard in school. He wanted to be a music teacher, to share what Elvis had taught him with other kids. Lucy was 13, healthy and thriving. She volunteered at the foundation every weekend, helping new families navigate their fear and uncertainty. She wanted to be a cardiac surgeon when she grew up, to save other kids like herself. The Lucia Martinez Foundation had helped over 300 children by now. 300 lives saved, 300 families given hope. They'd opened a second office in Nashville and were planning a third in Los Angeles. Rosa was the foundation's director now, traveling around the country to speak about children's heart health, about the importance of funding research, about never giving up hope. The Martinez family had moved out of the small house on Maple Street into a bigger one nearby. They'd wanted to stay in the neighborhood that had supported them, but they'd kept the old house too, turning it into a resource center for families dealing with childhood illness. Elvis still visited when he was in Memphis, though less frequently now that his touring schedule was busier, but he never forgot. Every year on the anniversary of the concert, he came back to Maple Street to celebrate with the community. And every year, Theo and Lucy performed together on the wooden stage, playing the songs that had saved a life and changed a neighborhood. Present day, the final scene. Theo Martinez, now a successful music teacher with students of his own, sat on his porch with his guitar. He was 43 years old, married, with 2 children sleeping inside. But tonight he was playing alone, like he used to do when he was 10. It was sunset, that golden hour when the sky caught fire with color. He played Love Me Tender, his fingers moving automatically through the familiar chords. He played it every evening still, not because he had to, but because it connected him to everything that had mattered. A car pulled up. Theo smiled, recognizing it immediately. Elvis Presley, now older with gray in his hair, but still that same kind smile, got out and walked up the porch steps. "Room for one more?" Elvis asked. "Always," Theo said. Elvis sat beside him, pulling out his own guitar. They played together as the sun set, 2 old friends making music not for fame or money or audiences, but simply for the joy of it. "Lucy called me yesterday," Elvis said between songs. "She told me about her latest research. She thinks they're close to a breakthrough in pediatric cardiology, something that could prevent the kind of heart problems she had." "She's amazing," Theo said proudly. "She's going to save so many kids, just like you saved her." "We saved each other. All of us did. You, me, Lucy, Mama, the whole neighborhood. That's what I try to teach my students now. Music isn't about being the best or being famous. It's about connection. It's about love." Elvis nodded. "You learned that lesson better than I ever did. You were the teacher all along, Theo. I was just the student." They played until the last light faded from the sky, their music drifting out into the Memphis evening, carrying with it a story of love and loss and promises kept. A story that started with a boy, a broken guitar, and a song played for a sister who could hear him across the border between life and death. A story that proved music really could make hearts stronger. A story that would echo through generations, reminding people that sometimes the most extraordinary things begin with the simplest act of love, keeping a promise, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then, in her home across town, Lucy Martinez Thompson, renowned cardiac surgeon and director of the Lucia Martinez Foundation, tucked her own children into bed and whispered the same words her brother had once whispered to her. "Music makes hearts stronger. Never forget that." And somewhere, in that place where memories live forever, a little 8-year-old girl with big dreams and a love for Elvis Presley smiled, knowing that her life, short as it had almost been, had mattered, had changed everything, had proved that love, in the end, was always louder than death. So where are you listening from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. We love hearing from you. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can spread kindness and remind the world that love and music can heal anything. And don't go just yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible story that will inspire you. Thank you for being here, and remember, keep your promises, keep playing your music, and never stop believing in miracles.